Hi, Kushal. Thank you so much for joining us on Blitz Business. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's get started. So, Kushal, first tell us a little bit about yourself. We were talking and discussing you're from Bombay and all. The weather is also looking very good.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a brief about me. So basically, by profession, I'm a chartered accountant. So that's where my journey started in around 2007. Of course, post that, it's been roller coaster because I've been doing a lot of work, including the professional services, staffing. I'm also part of something called an ISF, which is an Indian Staffing Federation. That's where the staffing companies of India roll up to. And when I come to my branch, I'm the co-founder in my branch. That's about in 2016 is when we created my branch. And the journey post that has been fantastic. I basically take care of the entire ecosystem in my branch. So either you talk about property sourcing because that is something which is very close to us because being a pan-India player and being present in almost all the states, that is your raw material. So that's about me in a nutshell. That that I just told you about being a CA and getting into business.
Wow. I have many now interesting questions coming into my head. So, first tell me in my branch, what exactly you guys do? You help, just help us understand the business.
Okay. So co-working, stroke flex space, shared office, this has evolved substantially in the last couple of years. And as it is said that currently there will be more than 400 co-working players in the market. So it's very important in such a crowded market to have a differentiation. So we basically have a solution for people in the market. Our solution is that if you want to do business anywhere in India, it could be a metro, it could be a tier 2 city, it could be a tier 5 city, where if you want to do business, it's my branch who will provide you the space, infrastructure, so that you can only focus on your core, which is business. And you can forget about the balance problem, which is infrastructure. And my branch will bring that on the table. So our model is such that we promote business from enterprise customers. Because startups are typically in the metros. But when you're talking about a pan-India player, especially say present in entire Northeast, so if you take all the 7 states, we are the only co-working player available in all of them. So we really cater to the enterprise stroke corporate customers. In addition to that, our office space, we provide an office-in-office format. So an office-in-office format typically means that within a larger template of an office, we divided it into multiple smaller offices. Because of that, the office becomes a pseudo own office of the customer. So we provide them biometric, we provide them server space, we provide them branding. So that's how our name My Branch also came into play, because we are actually providing their own branch out of our office. So that's the name My Branch also came into place. So
Very interesting.
so all the corporates actually use our office as their registered office in the city or state. So they do all the necessary compliance of shop and establishment, GST, leave and license, all of it is done. So that's how we are a bit different within the co-working sector.
So is it like once they come to you for my branch, now you're like, guys, tax filing, establishment, then you come to me now. It's a full
Actually,
service. Yeah.
it's a full service. So in fact, we have another group company which does staffing solutions also. So we tell them that we will provide you people also across India. So it's not just tax filing and all, it's the entire ecosystem. So it's a one-point solution. It's ease of doing business across India, typically.
Wow. Wow. Anything left in this value chain you are not doing or you plan to do?
So we are actually working on something. We don't know when it'll get kickstarted. So we are actually trying to get into certain CSR activities, because we're present in so many cities across India. And we also have, our wing called Narayan Bhargava Foundation, the CSR wing. So through that, we basically want to promote, educate, and employability. So we are actually looking at how we can use our My Branch centers as training centers to help people develop the skill so that we can also help them with employability.
Understood.
So we're working on that. That's still in the mix.
Understood. So Kushal, so help me understand this when you're running. So let's understand this My Branch business model in deeper. So do you guys first buy the property or you lease out? That's the first question. And the second part of the question is it mostly driven in terms of, like, I was reading some interview by Anarok MD or someone. He was stating that in to be profitable in this space, you have to rent out very large areas to get the profitability yield of 8%, 9%. I don't know if you're in that business because you're giving registered office also. So help us understand the working of it and how it
Yeah.
really works with
So,
it.
Ashish, firstly, I would say we would love to buy the properties, but unfortunately, it's a very capex heavy business because you're basically spending on the interior of the office. So if A, you're spending on the interior of the office, B, you're carrying losses until you hit a particular occupancy, and third, you need to give deposits to the landlord. So they ask anything deposits between 3 to 6 months. So this anyway is a triple whammy for us. If we go ahead and buy the property, it's going to be a different problem to address. So we don't really get into buying of property because, as I mentioned earlier, we are in a completely tier two market. So we are looking at currently opening up in Ambala, Meerut. So since you're in markets which is not tested, also it's not advisable to buy the property. When it's a tested market like say a metro where you have grade A buildings, I think it's a no-brainer. Even someone like you and me will take a call that let's go ahead and buy. But when you're in smaller city, like your city like Dimapur, Agartala, in some of these places, you can't even buy the property, because of the local. So we really don't get into buying properties. But yes, we have approximately 1 lakh square feet in our portfolio, which is owned by us, and we are sitting out of these locations. And to the second part, which you mentioned about the ANAROC report. So yes, the challenge typically in a tier two city is the supply. We are sitting in Bombay, we have the larger builders, either in terms of commercial or in terms of residential. But when you go to a tier two, finding a compliant property, having the right documents, having two exits, having a fire NOC, there are a whole lot of compliances which are there. So you really don't get that kind of supply in the tier two markets. And when you mentioned about rental yield of 6 to 7%, you will be happy to hear that the rental yields in tier two are much higher than that. So it's fantastic, and because the yields are better for renting out purposes, because of that you really don't need to take larger template offices.
So
And
what is that yield difference we are looking at?
I'll say the yield difference would be anything between 3 to 5%. And just to add to that, also, again, as I mentioned, is we are a tier two champion. You really don't get a 1 lakh, 2 lakh square feet space available like a metro. So if you talk to a builder or if you're trying to source properties, I'm just saying even in a city like Coimbatore or a Madurai, if you go for a 1 lakh square feet, even if you'll survey the whole city, you may not find more than one property. So the challenges in a tier two are very different, and that's where we stand tall.
And any specific reason, Kushal, to go for tier two when you want to set up the office? It's obviously the better economics. I'm assuming you get better rates and everything. But is the demand also there then for? Because I think in the end you are running registered offices, so it's fine, I guess, to be in tier two. Is it?
Yeah. So that's what I mentioned earlier. That's our business model. Our business model is such that we want customers to be sticky. What happens in a metro, because of the density of the co-working players, if you just take in Mumbai, Andheri East, it will have anything between 10 to 12 co-working players in that area. And when the density is very high, when the competition is high, the customer really doesn't end up being sticky. And in a metro, no corporate will come to us for a registered office. When you go to a tier two, when you're in Ranchi, Raipur, Ludhiana, Bhubaneswar, Bhopal, they are more open to exploring newer ideas. So in these cities, when someone takes your office as a registered office and they register, say, with something like an AMFI or an RBI or an insurance IRDI, then the chances of them moving out is very less. So one of our, I would say one of our brighter spots is that our customer retention ratio is more than 90%.
Wow.
That is phenomenal because no one really moves out. Once you register our office, they can't move out because if they want to, they have to even give a 3 months notice in a newspaper saying that, we are moving, and no one likes to go through this pain, typically in India. So as
Wow.
a company sticky model, we really have minimal customer move out ratio.
Understood. Now, some question as a CA. So, you enjoy being a CA more or running my branch?
I think being CA is my nature, and my branch I would say is a business. So I would say I've got my nature into business. So it's an extension of what I do, I would say. So of course, enjoying both are very similar.
Any particular area within chartered accountancy you like follow or you like to do?
So I would say in CA, what I prefer doing is that take business which is of lesser risk. So like in professional services, either you take a doctor, lawyer, CA, architect, you will realize that the risk element and the expectation of the customer is only increasing. So I'm just taking doctor as a profession. There was a time when people used to go to a GP, but today no one goes to a GP, they directly go to a specialist doctor. So same way in CA services, if you're doing any activity where you're doing a certification or you're doing a statutory audit of a large entity and you're putting your name on the neck, it's a blind side where you're entering into. So in CA services or in any professional services, I would say that it's important to get into businesses which are lesser in risk and are scalable in nature, because both of them will go hand in hand.
So, what are these type of businesses?
So just to tell you, in the CA firm, as we speak, we have roughly 400 employees in the banking sector only. So that's a large team size. Just a couple of months back, we had a similar discussion. So we were doing, or we are doing, more than 25,000 KYC verifications per day. So that's how large our team size, was or is in terms of KYC. And if you see KYC, it's typically a low risk activity.
So, what to help us understand KYC you're doing on behalf of banks? Basically, I'm assuming,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So on behalf of banks, the bank is primarily responsible for opening the account of the bank, account of the customer, I'm sorry. And while opening the account, they need to have certain documentation, which is a proof to show that it's a proof of identity and proof of address. These are typically the two activities or two documents that a bank needs for opening an individual account. And post that, we do the eyeballing and we do the check to see whether or not the documentation is right.
That's quite a scale of the activity. And what is the finding you have from this KYC? How many people are submitting fake documents?
I wouldn't be able to answer that, because the banks are in the right place to answer that, because we are really not checking the authenticity of the document. We are checking whether the document is available or not, because authenticity needs to be checked by the bank itself. So, I think the bankers are the right people to answer that question. And along with that, also what we do in the CA firm, which again is one of a kind. Again, as I said, as we speak, we are doing more than 6,000 audits per month across India. So we specialize in in-person verification, mystery shopping, assets verification, and things like that. So due to that, we service more than 1,000 pin codes across India. We serve the length and breadth, and that again is a complementary business to my branch itself. So even the CA firm, which is present in 8 cities, is actually working out of my branch offices only.
Wow.
So we are creating an ecosystem itself where we are feeder to each other only within the group for business.
Wow. And this is what I can sense is it's very operation heavy, right? Like there are
Absolutely.
so many, because you are doing all these activities. So I come from software background. We sell software. It's still I feel operational heavy, but this feels more operation heavy. So how do you deal with the challenges? So tell us what sort of challenges you face on day-to-day basis.
See, again, I'm saying not only for me. I would say Ashish, you will also second it. Managing people is the biggest challenge. So getting out numbers, getting profitability, all of this is only outcome of driving the people. So if people are convinced about the brand, if people are convinced that they need to be accountable, if people are convinced that they can perform, that itself is the biggest win which any owner or HOD can get. So I will not name any second biggest challenge, because the biggest challenge is getting the right outcome from people.
And how do you sort of this is a very interesting topic, and I have asked so many founders and from in business, like how do you instill this sense of accountability? How do you bring that sort of, because I think that's a very, it has to come from within. You cannot force someone to be like, hey, you have to be accountable. I think that doesn't work. So what is sort of steps, or how do you develop someone to be accountable for their action, deliverables, or activities they are doing?
I would say I have the answer for that, and then I would have written multiple books and earned a lot more dollars out of it. So I really don't think there's an answer for that. But I think one of the easier ways to get to that is getting the employee part of the decision making. So if he or she feels that they have decided that they need to do something, getting an outcome is easier when other than the manager saying that you need to do this. So if the manager is telling an employee that you need to come to work on a Saturday, is very different from an employee saying that that there's a lot of work. I think me and the team members should come on Saturday to work. So when you make people part of the decision making, accountability gets easier. But as I said, there's no single answer. There's no answer as such available. These are some things which can help you to get better accountability.
But that's a great point. I mean, and but it takes, I think, quite a lot of skills to make that sort of, bringing the person in the, and to be able them to be able to say, hey, I will come on Saturday, and or something. I mean, that is because in Kushal, in like we have done like 150, 160 interviews so far, and one of the common theme has been this with specific point, how to handle people management, because everybody who has run like raised multiple $1 million or someone starting from scratch, this is a common pain point for all of.
Absolutely. Because it is the right point, not for any other reason.
What is the biggest challenge for you, Kushal, apart from this? Like, since you are into multiple things, right? Complementary multiple things, which sort of has synergies and symbiotic relationship across the segment. Like, what do you find challenging, interesting? Like, what is your view?
As a promoter, I would say, again, it's challenging also. And the best part also of my job is that no two days are same. So, a lot of every day when I come in, the challenge for, say, the CA firm, the challenge for the staffing business, the challenge for my branch, every day the challenges are different. So, because of that, there's no template set available on knowing that if you're coming, what you're going to expect at work. So I would say when you're doing a BAU activity, when you're doing an activity within the box, it's very easy to work hard, achieve numbers. But when you're doing multiple things, as I mentioned, the CA business is very different from a co-working, and that is very different from a staffing business. So when you have businesses that are very diverse, able to think and compartmentalizing the mind that that this is what you need to achieve is one of the biggest challenges I feel as a founder when you're doing multiple business. If the business was complementing each other, compartmentalization wouldn't have been that difficult. But when you have multiple business, I think that's something to get the right performance out.
And in this entire sort of segment, Kushal, since you understand and you have been present into multiple aspects of it, where is the opportunity? So, for example, we have many listeners who wants to start something. They hear about a business, right? In this value chain, if someone wants to start, where do you see the opportunity, or yourself, you are contemplating, hey, maybe I want to start, attack on this particular piece, and we are maybe not doing right now, or it doesn't matter to me, but this is a good opportunity.
See, I would say, Ashish, I would not say that what is a good opportunity, because that changes from people to people. Because, the perspective of someone, perspective of yours, as you said, from software you are, and perspective of me from CA, it will always be different. So, what I would suggest is that certain things people should take into factor when deciding to get into business. So, one factor should be entry barrier. So if there's an easy entry barrier, then for anybody else to replicate your business model becomes very easy. I'm just taking, say, for example, a restaurant. A restaurant, if you're opening, say, an idli dosa shop or something, the entry barrier isn't really there. You have to just get the right cooks, of course. But because there's no entry barrier, anybody can even open their shop next to you and take some business of yours. So entry barrier, I think, is a parameter someone needs to think of. Second thing is, person needs to think whether he or she wants to do a business that is scalable. So just taking example as professional services, a doctor, a CA, a lawyer, he has that many number of hours only in a day. So he cannot do more business than the number of hours he's doing if he's doing a business which is dependent on him. Whereas if you take us in the CA firm, we are not doing any business which is dependent on the partner, which is me. We are doing business which is all dependent on adding more people at the entry level. So second is to understand how scalable you want your business to be. And third is, in India, of course, is regulatory. It's very important that whichever business you get into, you have to understand the regulations because of AI, because of technology, all information gets rolled up together. So if you swipe a credit card, either you're doing a NEFT, RTGS transaction, if you're using your UPIs, all this information now is getting rolled up, and people have already started getting notices and questions, saying that how have you spent this. So I would say these are the few things which people should factor before starting their business.
And how can someone get such clarity of thought?
I think I really don't know that, but I would say it's very important to have, to compartmentalize. It's very important to spend the right time on, everything. So it's not only about work. It's about, you should be able to have exercise, to have, physical, to have physical flexibility. You should be able to do, maybe just say yoga or do things, where your mind is agile, because that's the only time when you're physically and mentally fit and agile, you can do more and more things.
That's a very interesting and good point. I mean, coming to health, we are now entering into, I think it's a good segue also, founder burnout. I mean, there are many such, we have discussed in the past also. It's a thing wherein people are trying to build. So there is this theme where, raise capital fast, fail fast, and then move ahead, right? But there is an outcome of it, founder burning out or etc., building products which doesn't fit into the market, right? So what is your views on?
See, again, it's about, what the person's mind is there. I personally believe is, it's bite what you can chew. So since I believe in that, I know I will never over expand. I will never over leverage, because this is the thought process probably as a chartered accountant, which is there in me. So I never over leverage. And probably that has also been a success story. And that's also the reason that we've got a gradual growth and not a pent up growth. Because otherwise in startups, when you mentioned that there's burnout and all, because they are under pressure to ensure that the growth comes as on yesterday. But when you're working with your own funds, so even today, we are completely own funds. We have no external investors in any of our companies. So when you don't have that pressure of, either a listing or a VC who's saying that, quarterly results, if you don't have that, you can have, if there's a sunny day, you can enjoy it. So it's very important, to keep yourself agile, as I mentioned.
And you don't plan to raise any such external capital funding?
Not in the current scheme of things. If we are looking at changing our thought process, then we will have to definitely consider, because co-working is an extremely capital intensive business. So you can't keep running only based on your existing fund flow. And if you do that, your growth will be limited. So, we'll take it as it comes. We are also going through expansion plans because, the co-working sector right now is in the sunrise sector. Everybody is looking at it. And as I mentioned earlier, that there are around 400 co-working players. So it's the right industry to be in. And let's see how the journey goes.
And I think in India, WeWork is still operational, right? I think someone acquired it. Yeah,
absolutely.
So but they are doing well, right?
Absolutely, they're doing well. Yes. So they are one of, so the advantage, I would not say of WeWork, is the advantage of a real estate company getting into co-working is super beneficial, because a real estate company already the inventory in the right micro markets. So because of that, you can easily leverage into that. So any co-working player who has an investor buy from the real estate side, commercial real estate side, is definitely going to outperform anybody else. I think that's a no-brainer.
So then, Kushal, what are your plans for the coming years? You have established pin codes, you're expanding, scaling. So any big milestone you're looking at, key, I want to achieve X, Y, Z in next 5 years, or you are happy with the current pace and see how it goes?
Ashish, I'm sure with a brief interaction, you'll know that I will never be happy with what is happening. You have to always push the goalpost. And once you reach the goalpost, you have to again push it further. So yeah, so as we speak, we are present in around 70 plus cities. Our first target is to hit 100 cities, which we are quite sure that may happen by March 25. And then we are looking to expand the city model. So we want to be present across India in all the states. We want to be present in all the smart cities because that's where even the government is investing. And needless to say, the job opportunities will come in those cities only. We are looking to get into cities where the infrastructure, which is improving, let's take Nagpur as an example. That's the only city in India which has a three-layered bridge. So you have the metro, you have the highway, and then you have the normal road on the ground floor, on the base basically. The tier 2 cities are really growing substantially. You have twin cities like Warangal, Hanumankonda, because of which it's getting larger. You have, many, there's a lot of movement happening in the tier 2 cities. So, it all depends on how the infrastructure development happens. And we are, at least as we speak, gunning to reach 100 cities first. So that's going to be a milestone.
And to reach 100 cities, you are assume all organic ways. You don't plan to acquire any one of those 400 co-working.
Ashish, not at this point of time, because this is a sunrise sector, and because of that, the valuations are through the roof. So even if you take AWFIS, who's listed a couple of months back, already in due course, they are already at two times the value what they were listed at. So in a heated sector, then there are other co-working players also who are coming with IPO. So this is probably not the right time for consolidation. Personally, I feel it should take around 2 to 3 years more for consolidation to take place, not before that.
And awesome. And no plans for listing, I assume, also then, as of
now? No plans of listing at all.
I love this
unless we get $1 million plan, someone gives us $1 million idea, which is not there today, then we can look at it. But not at.
And what else keeps you occupied, Kushal, from all this activity? How do you get time then?
So what I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure you're going to believe it, but I play thrice a week at least. I play football and I run. So I play at least thrice a week. That's a given at any point of time. I spend time with my wife, with my children every single day. A lot of parents, they say they are weekend fathers. I am definitely not in that category. I spend as much time with them. So my priorities are clear that I need to spend more time on my physical health, my physical mindset, spend time with family and also work at the same time. So in fact, the social media like Instagram. I'm sure everybody knows about that. My primary reason to get on Instagram was only because my employees and colleagues felt I never had a personal life. So I had to get there to tell people that I have a personal life. And my friends, who I hang out with and who I play or who I party with, they never thought I work. So in fact, 2 of my friends have actually come to office to check that whether do I work or not. So that's how for me life is.
Do you have a twin, Kushal? Do you have a twin? One is at work, one is there.
So that's what I'm saying. So people don't believe that office guys don't believe I have a personal life, and personal life, friends and families don't feel that I have a, I have a work life.
That's a rare thing. I'm also first time. I'm not able to believe, as you said.
So that's what I'm saying. So it said, work hard, party harder, and play the hardest. I think that's
awesome. Thanks a ton, Kushal, for your time and for your insight. I really appreciated, the clarity of your thought process, because I think that's very important in whatever you're doing. If you understand it well, you can excel it at any given point in time. But that structuring of thought is, I think, very crucial. So thank you for explaining us. And I need to learn that balance. I don't have that balance, but maybe soon. But yeah, thank you for your time, Kushal.
Yeah, thanks. Cheers.